This is Gene Bailey. If you're unfamiliar, he is a televangelist. He's on this TV show called Flashpoint. It's owned and operated by Kenneth Copeland. And they repeat literally whatever Trump believes, or Trump wants the world to believe. They repeat Trump propaganda like mad. And it's fascinating to watch. So Trump was just indicted. I don't know which one this is. 2, 3, 4, 5. Who knows? I think right now they're talking about indictment number 3, maybe? I think this is indictment number 3 because this came out on August 3rd, 2023. So anyway, it's all kind of running together, and they're giving their opinion on Trump indictments anyway. So I want to listen to these televangelist Trump extremists and what they had to say on the Victory Network on cable TV. Now, this is not part 1. If you haven't seen part 1, don't sweat it. This stands independently of the rest. I'll provide context if it's missing. In the last one, we talked about all of his indictments, 1 through 4, and how they were reacting to it a little bit. But let's just jump in. They're talking about Jack Smith right now, which is a special prosecutor that's prosecuting Trump for classified documents he took home and for sending fake electors to Washington, D.C. on January 6th. That's what he's being prosecuted for. 2 separate cases. So let's continue to listen here, see what he has to say for himself. And while we do, we're going to play some Final Fantasy VII. If you haven't played it in the past, don't worry about it. It'll just kind of be in the background. Just something to do and watch while we listen to these nutter butters spread their nutter buttery all over everything. Okay, let's give it a listen, shall we?
You know, the temperatures that we take on the American public, they're not buying. They know there were some bad players there. They know this, and it's like, why? Really? You're going to indict him now on this? This seems to be, is it a grasp for a straw for something to pull in, or is this?
This is fascinating. So what he's saying is the American people know that there are dirty people involved in whatever, right? Involved in politics. So why is it that they believe that Trump in his indictment, so why is it that they believe that Trump's indictment is legitimate? Really? Because there are dirty people in politics means that a politician's indictment for criminal acts cannot be legitimate? Are you really trying to use that logic on us right now? Quick interjection. I won't take long. I just wanted to tell you guys, YouTube's algorithm operates off of a few factors. Watch time, whether or not you subscribe, and whether or not you like something. So if you really want to help my channel, I would appreciate it if you guys watch the video to the end. If you don't watch it to the end, just watch a little bit longer than you would have otherwise. I would appreciate that very much. All right, let's get back to the video.
Buying. They know there were some bad players there. They know this, and it's like, why? Really? You're going to indict him now on this? This seems to be, is it a grasp for a straw for something to pull in, or is this just part of the plan?
I think it's what Lance said, and what you're saying is part of the plan. It's almost like there's some Hollywood directors on the left that are holding these indictments until every major thing blows up with Biden or Hunter Biden. So yesterday.
Really? There are some, you catching what he's throwing here? Saying there are some Hollywood directors on the left that are performing a show for us publicly to show that Donald Trump is being indicted or whatever. This is insane. These people need help, for real. Get help, guys. How much more ridiculous does this get, honestly? The bottom line, as Robert Adset says, so Trump was guilty, but nobody should care. It's the argument, apparently. Yeah, that seems to be the argument. I mean, the argument, of course, varies from day to day, changes from day to day. Sometimes the argument is he's guilty, but you shouldn't care because everyone else did it. Sometimes the argument is he's not guilty, you're just a hater. And sometimes it's he did those things, he is guilty of doing them, but he was allowed to do those things. It's just insane, man. They live in a different reality, and it's so sad to see. Lucky for us, the reality that they live in is occupied by a reasonably small subset of the population. So my guess is about 15% of the country agrees with these guys that we're listening to on screen, and are what you'd call like QAnon level conspiracy theorists or QAnoners. As you move out, it's kind of like concentric circles. As you move out, you find people believing some of the QAnon claims, but not being QAnoners directly. And they get less and less extreme as you go. I would say about 70% of the country is not extreme. They are not insane like these people kind of tend to be. And they have mostly reasonable views about stuff. They can be swayed. They can be persuaded to take the right positions on the right things. So there's something called an epistemic bubble, and there's something called an echo chamber. Now, you may not be familiar with the first term, epistemic bubble. Let me give you some insight into what an echo chamber is and what an epistemic bubble is. The difference between the two, an echo chamber is an unpierceable bubble that exists around somebody where all they ever hear is information about this one subject. You know, there's an echo chamber about Donald Trump. You watch Flashpoint, you watch Shane Vaughn, you watch Hank Kunneman, you watch Kenneth Copeland. You're going to get the same information repeated over and over and over again, and nothing can pierce it. Because they train you, they give you the tools in the form of like loaded language and cliches to shoot down any arguments against what you might hear or against Donald Trump or whatever, right? That's an echo chamber. An epistemic bubble is where you kind of exist in that bubble where you're listening to these certain things, or you're on Facebook and basically all you're seeing is stuff about, you know, your uncle's coming on and he's telling us, you know, that the Jews control Hollywood and all, you know, he's just being a nutter butter, right? But if you were given the facts, if you were given correct information about this stuff, and you were given evidence to show that this is true, that what your uncle is saying is nonsense, you would accept it. That's the difference between an epistemic bubble, which is what I just described, and an echo chamber. You can pierce an epistemic bubble, and if you do pierce that bubble with evidence and logic, usually it's accepted. You can't pierce an echo chamber because they have this visceral reaction built into them from any of the arguments on the other side. I would say 30% of the country is in the Trump echo chamber. I would say 70% is outside the echo chamber, but a good portion are in an epistemic bubble. So we have to kind of pierce that epistemic bubble by doing exactly what I'm doing now, spreading this information in a consumable, interesting form to people on YouTube. It could get recommended to people who might be interested in politics, but might not be, you know, on the left. So I try to kind of appeal to moderates sometimes. I try to show them that you can be normal and on the left and not a complete psycho in an attempt to pierce the epistemic bubble. That's the idea here. So anyways, I just wanted to outline that for you if you were unfamiliar with the two terms. Oh, yeah. So I was saying these people are QAnoners. They seem to believe that, like, there are Hollywood directors that are, like, planning out exactly what the next moves are going to be to, like, get Donald Trump to blah, 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 whatever. That's complete nonsense, and it's QAnon-level stuff. Most of the country is going to see this and hear it and think, that's insane. What is wrong with you? Most of the country, the vast majority, the silent majority is going to say that. You are insane. But that's, 30% of the country. That's why we got to talk about it.
Directors on the left that are holding these indictments until every major thing blows up with Biden or Hunter Biden. So yesterday, there's this.
Okay, Hunter Biden is not like some big mob boss that's like pulling levers of power like these people just live in a fantasy land. Hunter Biden is just some dude, okay? And also, he's not involved in government, so I don't care. If he did something wrong, charge him with the crime. Simple as that. Charge him with the crime. Can you say the same about Donald Trump? If he did something wrong, charge him with a crime? You haven't given me an example of something Hunter Biden has done wrong yet, aside from what he's been charged with, which is tax evasion, for 2 years and some gun charge. Great, he was charged. I'm happy with that. I'm glad. He should be sentenced for that, and he should face repercussions for breaking the law. Simple as that. See how easy that is? Do you feel the same about Trump?
This shocking bombshell testimony of the Bidens and their brand and he's the boss, right, and all that kind of get a burner phone.
But this is all made up nonsense about Joe Biden. They are desperate to make him out to be some mob boss when he's not. You know why they're trying to frame him up that way? Because that's how Donald Trump is being framed up. Because that's how he acts, like a mob boss. They want to frame Joe Biden the way that, Donald Trump acts effectively. They're trying to frame up Joe Biden that way.
All that stuff breaks, and then they release this. It's like a Hollywood-directed thing where they're trying to distract people from there. But notice what you just said. January 6th, the bad actors were there. They're not in the indictment.
Right.
This whole thing was funneled on the January 6th,
What the hell are you talking about? The bad actors are not in the indictment. What? I don't know if you're aware of January 6th. I've been through this a few times. I'm not going to go through it again, but I'm not going to go through it again in detail. But during January 6th, the leader of the Oath Keepers, Stuart Rhodes, who just got sentenced to 20 years, I think, stayed back outside of D.C. and was issuing orders to people at the Capitol like a battlefield general would do. And he had caches of weapons stashed around the area that people could grab if they needed them, and more ammunition and stuff like that. The goal was to get a hostage. Ideally, Mike Pence. That's why they built the gallows and everything. And they used an angry crowd as the pretext, or as a cover for what they were trying to do. An actual literal coup. This is all orchestrated by Donald Trump, and Donald Trump communicated with Roger Stone, who met in a parking lot with the leader of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, I believe he met with him, and the leader of the Oath Keepers, Stuart Rhodes. Enrique Tarrio and Stuart Rhodes are both in jail right now. And I don't know about Enrique Tarrio's sentence, but Stuart Rhodes is going to be there for 20 years at least. We'll see what happens with Trump if he's actually charged or sentenced or whatever. Well, he's been charged. We'll see if he's sentenced for anything.
False selection committee. And so every bit of that stuff ignores the bad actors, ignores that Trump incited this. It is the weakest thing, Gene. It is so weak. He's basically saying, hey, I want everybody to read it. Why? Because I want you to be distracted from the other problems that we have, like Lance just said.
Right. So Jack Smith said he wanted people to read the indictment. It's not that long, and it is worth a read. I mean, I talked about it in the last part, so if you're curious, you can just go back and listen to what I had to say about it. But it is an extremely strong indictment. Trump is in bad shape as a result of these indictments, of all four of them. Again, this one is about indictment number 3, but the idea is the same. Her blood sugar is falling. It's at 78. I might have to bring her to the hospital. I'm going to give her more honey. Hang on. Give me a second, guys. I mean, it was obvious that the honey worked. It picked up her glucose, but it continues to fall right now. Why? Why is her glucose falling? Alpha40 says hi. I gave her the treats that were not diabetic safe, so, they had, sugar and stuff. Hopefully it will stabilize her. It will help stabilize her blood sugar long term. We just need to keep it up until those carbs convert to sugars, basically. I put a lot of honey on her gums just now. She's drinking water now. That's a sign that she's having a hypoglycemic event, drinking water. Alpha40 is watching, and she knows the signs. So anyway, let's keep listening. Sorry, guys. Cat, I got to take care of the cat. Make sure she's okay. All right, let's keep listening here.
I want you to be distracted from the other problems that we have, like Lance just said.
All right, well, let me show you this clip, Jonathan Turley, on the same subject. Watch.
The DOJ, the special counsel, the Democrats.
Okay, I don't know who Jonathan Turley is or why I should care. Top left is Brett Baer. and that's a Fox News host. They like to present themselves as news. They are not at all. They are not news. They're political commentators like me, which is fine. That's fine. But don't present yourself as news.
Run, that's what the Republicans charge, are looking at a box of chocolates here, and they're just trying to figure out the best chocolate to go after the former president to prevent him from being president again.
Well, I think this indictment is going to fulfill that narrative. I think that...
So I'm just watching the cat, making sure she's walking straight. She is. She's stretching. She seems fine. Just watching her, making sure she's not doing something weird. Yeah, she's just laying down. She seems fine. We need to check her every 15 minutes. Sorry about that, guys.
Well, I think this indictment is going to fulfill that narrative. I think that the indictment does not have this compelling level of evidence. I thought Mar-a-Lago was strong, and I said so. So did Andy.
Okay, well, you're wrong. This indictment is extremely strong. It's maybe even stronger than the Mar-a-Lago one, where they raided Mar-a-Lago to get the classified documents or whatever. I think this case is even stronger. They're just trying to downplay it desperately. Whatever they can do to downplay this and make it look like it's a witch hunt, like they're attacking Trump for nothing. That's what this is really all about. That's what they care about. It's just nonsense.
This doesn't have that. And I also have to tell you, I was equally critical of Merrick Garland in his statement 30 minutes ago. You know, he's constantly taking the role of a pedestrian in all of this. This is
Merrick Garland is taking the role of a pedestrian. What does that mean? Taking the role of somebody who's crossing the street or walking on the sidewalk? What?
The time when you want to turn...
Wait, what? Okay, hang on. Yeah, so the definition is a person walking along a road or in a developed area. I guess there's an adjective definition of pedestrian, which is lacking inspiration or excitement, dull. So you could say this game is very pedestrian, and what it would mean is this game is boring or dull, right? But he used it as a noun. He's taking the role of a person, place, or thing. Pedestrian. What the hell did he even mean by that? That made no sense at all. It's like these people just use random words and trust that the audience is just going to believe they know what they're talking about. It's like it's embarrassing at this point. They don't even try, seemingly.
Constantly taking the role of a pedestrian in all of this. This is a time when you want an attorney general to look at an indictment and say, wait, is this all you have? Because this is stretching the law, and it's a speaking indictment that doesn't say enough.
Sorry, guys. No, it's not stretching the law. Actually, it's not stretching the law. This indictment, they're talking about number 3, not number 4, which already came out. Number 3 and number 4 are not stretching the law. They're 100% real. And Donald Trump's going to have to face him down one way or another. Now, indictment number 3, the one they're referring to here, is a federal charge, which means he can be pardoned for it. If he goes to jail or if he resigns his presidency or whatever, he can be pardoned by his vice president. And you can bet your bottom dollar he would be. Or if he loses to Joe Biden this time and he does end up going to jail, when a Republican president gets into office next, he's going to pardon Trump, I'm sure of it. But indictment number 4 is in Fulton County, Georgia, over the I need 11,000 votes, give me a break phone call to Brad Raffensperger. And indictment number 1 over the hush money payments to Stormy Daniels and falsifying business records. Those are state charges, and he's going to have to face those down no matter what, basically. He can be pardoned by governors in some instances, or boards or whatever, depending on which state it is. But there's really no good way out of this for Trump, out of either of those things.
This is stretching the law, and it's a speaking indictment that doesn't say enough. But he clearly didn't do that. And I think that this is going to end up tarnishing his legacy. I think it's going to undermine the special counsel and the credibility of his efforts.
Okay, that's just absurd, and it's an embarrassment that they have people on Fox News saying this stuff to, old scared white people. It's just an embarrassment.
Okay, so Lance, you heard Jonathan Turley there say the whole thing seems to be a bit of a reach.
Yeah, I heard him say that. Is it true? Of course not. Nonsense. There are strengths and weaknesses in the case. I talked about it in the last episode. What they're talking about here is the third charge, not the fourth. The fourth charge is the Georgia election interference case. Number 3 is the January 6th insurrection case. So let me just take a quick look at the strengths and weaknesses of the case. Here are the strengths of the case. So again, this is a federal case that we're looking at. Trump's efforts to subvert the election were extensive, well-documented, and largely in public view. He and his allies spread lies about voter fraud and stoked the protests that led to the January 6th attack. That's a strength. And number 2, many of the top aides in the Trump administration testified to the grand jury, giving investigators remarkable insight into what was happening privately in Trump's orbit during the critical 2-month period, and perhaps providing important evidence about Trump's state of mind. Pence, who resisted Trump's pressure to try to annul the election results on January 6th, was the most notable witness. Others included Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows. Mickey's drinking water again. His White House counsel, Pat Cipollone, his national security advisor, Robert O'Brien, so on and so forth. Stephen Miller's in here too. So basically the strength is people flipped on Trump. And his lies were very, very public. The weaknesses of the case we're talking about right now is Trump may argue that his statements were protected by the First Amendment, by free speech. That's not what he's being charged for. He can say whatever he wants. He's being charged for refusing to, for sending a fake slate of electors to the Capitol that day. And here's another weakness. A president seeking to impede the peaceful transfer of power is unprecedented in American history, and the attempt to hold him legally accountable is similarly unprecedented. So that's the other weakness, according to Politico, which is a pretty trustworthy site. It's totally unprecedented. So there are the strengths and weaknesses. Now let's get back to what they were saying here on Flashpoint. I think it's completely unfair for them to say that this is all made up and this isn't a problem and all that stuff. No, it is. It is, actually. It is a problem for Donald Trump.
So, Lance, you heard Jonathan Turley there say the whole thing seems to be a bit of a reach.
It is not.
What's your take on that? Do you agree with that, what he said?
Just for the record, I said this I said this in the previous part, but Lance Wallnau, the guy in the middle who's about to talk, had his bank accounts frozen for money laundering. Should give you some context into the type of people that are answering this question.
Yeah, it's like, where's the beef? So here's the deal. I love the fact that they're zeroing in on January 6th. I don't understand. It's almost like this gives me hope. When I see my enemy doing stupid things, I actually have hope that God is helping us. Because they didn't bother to look at the ratings in the January 6th show. They hired an ABC producer.
Well, okay, I don't care what the ratings were on the January 6th. Okay, if you're watching this 5 years in the future, he's talking about a, hearing, a congressional hearing on January 6th. Kevin McCarthy and others in the Republican Party who were sympathetic to charging the January 6th rioters set it up so that it was basically only nonpartisan people, a couple of Republicans, but they were acting in a nonpartisan way, and Democrats were on the committee. And they did a whole big hearing where they called witnesses and everything and aired it publicly. And Lance Wallnau is hanging his hat on the idea that it had low ratings. First of all, no, it didn't. Didn't have low ratings. It had extremely high ratings all the way through. And second, I think the January 6th people are largely considered to be unpopular. Kylie's in the background checking. Did I just really? I went through the tutorial. I can't believe I went through the tutorial. That's my fault. Give it a second to get through. What's her sugar? Okay, it's going back up. It's going back up. Good. That's good. It was at 70-something before, right? It seems like I've stabilized her blood sugar. It's kind of going up and down a little bit, but it's not on a steep decline at the moment. So that's a plus, at least. I can't believe that I went through the tutorial on this. Pain in the ass. 101. It's too low. It shouldn't be 101 for a cat. That's too low for a cat. That's great for a human. Too low for a cat. I'm hoping those treats bring it up. Yeah, it looks like our sugar's coming back up. That is good. That's good news. Honey is a quick and cheap solution, basically, and it wears off a little quickly. So you need to basically give her something that's going to maintain that, that jump. Basically, like something, you need to give her a carb, because carbs convert to sugars, from my understanding. Again, I'm just a layman. I'm just doing the best that I can with the limited information that I have. I am not an expert in this. I'm trying my best, but I'm just some fucking idiot over here, And I just worry so much I'm going to fuck something up and make her sick. Or maybe kill her. Like, my God, dude. This is why I don't have pets right here. This. Because I feel like, it's so devastating when you lose them. It's just so damn devastating. Anyway, all right, let's keep listening to these guys here.
And they still couldn't get ratings because that's Beltway theater for the Democrats.
That's right.
The rest of the country says, yeah, how many feds do you think were actually in the crowd there? How come they...
Okay, the rest of the country's not saying that. I think it's about 30% are saying that. And those are the most extreme of the most extreme in existence.
Never said how many. What about that Epps guy? How did they let him?
Okay, Ray Epps was not a Fed, and he is right in the middle of suing Tucker Carlson and I think Fox News also for claiming that he was involved with federal agents to any degree. He's not involved with federal agents. He's not on their payroll, not an informant, not a nothing. They were just looking for somebody to blame when they should have been looking in the mirror. It's your fault, okay? You were the one that busted into the Capitol on January 6th. You were at fault. Nobody but you. Anyway, it's kind of ballsy for this dude, Lance Wallnau, dude that had his bank account frozen for money laundering, Kind of ballsy for him to even mention Ray Epps in this context, because he could very easily get caught up in the lawsuit as well. So, anyway, they're just ridiculous. Let's keep listening here.
Were actually in the crowd there. How come they never said how many? What about that Epps guy? How did they let him out? And they got film of him organizing. And
okay, he wasn't organizing. They let him out because I don't believe he even went into the Capitol, to my knowledge. He didn't break that many, if any, laws at all. Like, you just live in a fantasy land where you're the victim 24/7, and you have to come up with some explanation for the world where everything makes sense, even though it doesn't. Nothing that you said makes any sense at all. I think I bought too many grenades there. I shouldn't have spent so much money on the grenades. Oh, well.
And, and so what you've got is the D.C. chief of police was never called in by the January 6th committee.
Chief of police of D.C.? Why would he be called in? He's not a federal officer. He wasn't there, to my knowledge, on January 6th. He has nothing to do with any of this stuff. These were federal officers at the Capitol building. So, yeah, the chief of police, doesn't surprise me, is a Trump supporter. He's biased. Of course I wouldn't call him in. He's biased.
Because he said feds were all over the place. He knows that. And there was some weird stuff going on prior to January 6th. And
how would he know that? Did they tell him that? Is he willing to testify about that under oath? Is he willing to tell us how he knows that there were feds everywhere? Of course not. He doesn't have any more information on this than you do because he wasn't involved in this. He was not part of the operation or whatever. Sure, I'm sure that there were probably federal agents there watching and waiting and seeing what happened next. And, in all fairness, federal agents do have a tendency to take advantage of situations and plant weapons and, encourage, incite things that they shouldn't incite and stuff like that. That's not what happened here. We know what happened here. Stuart Rhodes, leader of the Oath Keepers, and Enrique Tarrio, leader of the Proud Boys, met with Roger Stone on Donald Trump's behalf and planned this whole riot, planned to get people whipped into a blood frenzy, as they did, and they were going to take a hostage under that cover. That's what really happened. We know that without a shadow of a doubt. We have evidence, hard evidence of it.
Including Trump asking for National Guard to be there and Pelosi deciding not to.
That's made up, too. Like, that entire thing is made up. Donald Trump was looking into getting National Guard to protect him on that day. Pelosi did not call it off. Pelosi had nothing to do with anything at all. It's just completely made up. He's just looking for a reason that people on January 6th are 100% innocent, and, the federal government and the left is to blame for everything. Of course, coming from the guy, once again, that got busted for money laundering.
And I like the fact that they want to make January 6th this assault on democracy, because everybody knows you had BLM Antifa riots in 200 cities.
No, that's an extremely unpopular and uncommon position to take.
And there was no follow-up. But you have unarmed people protesting an election fraud.
There was no election fraud. And it was about 1,000 people, from my understanding, give or take.
And they're all guilty of insurrection.
No, they're not. Not all of them are charged with insurrection. Only the insurrectionists were. The QAnon shaman, for example, was not charged with insurrection. Remember him? Jacob Chansley? This is Jacob Chansley when he was still in jail. He gave this interview to Ann Vandersteel is her name. The Steel Truth is the name of the show.
This is something else I'd like to mention. These deep underground military bases, they are essentially a breakaway civilization because they have used billions upon billions of dollars to technologically grow without the knowledge of the public. And so for every year that human civilization progresses up on the surface, the military-industrial complex, these deep underground bases, they have progressed in many cases like 5 to 10 years.
Oh boy, now we have entered Crazy Town. He's talking about breakaway civilizations that live underground and all this stuff. Like, bro, come back to reality. You are gone.
Sometimes 10 to 20 years as far as technology is concerned. And if you realize that they've been doing this ever since like the 50s, then where they are at technologically right now is like several hundred years ahead of where we are technologically right now.
Dude, seriously, he lives in a fantasy. This isn't even the craziest thing that I've heard him say. I mean, we only have so much time to talk about this stuff, so I can't cover everything, but he is unglued from reality. And by the way, I've mentioned Lance Wallnau and his money laundering thing a couple of times, so I feel the need to kind of back that up. Let's talk about it for a second. Yeah, okay, so Lance Wallnau himself posted about it. That's how we know anything about the money laundering thing. He says, Bank of America froze my ministry account. You won't believe what just happened to me. My own bank account got frozen by Bank of America for no reason other than being a conservative podcaster. Oh, and money laundering. Right. Forgot that one, I guess. They were investigating conservative bloggers and Christian ministries for money laundering while ignoring the real threats in America. It's outrageous and illegal. No, it isn't. But I had to do it to expose the corruption in our banking system. You had to do what? Launder money? What are you talking about? Anyway, that's the post, the Facebook post that Lance Wallnau put out about it. That's why I say he got busted for money laundering, because he said that he did. Anyways, let's keep listening. God, dude.
I think this actually works to our advantage. Let's go discuss January 6th. We never actually had a discussion. Let's have it now.
Agreed. That's great. John, let me ask you this question.
No, talking about January 6th is really, really bad for the right. It's an extremely unpopular event or position or whatever you want to call it.
And most common question I get about this is like, well, does this mean Trump can't run?
No.
Explain the how all this affects
the legal
race.
stuff. It's not going to affect him at all. He can be convicted. So remember,
That's correct. To my knowledge, he can be convicted of all of this stuff, absolutely anything at all, and he can still run. That's my understanding. I don't believe that felons are barred from running for office. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you guys remember this, but Tiger King, you remember Tiger King? I never saw it. But the main character of Tiger King, whatever the hell his name was, he's running for president. He ran for president in 2020. I think he's running again in 2024. He runs it like every time. He's just sitting in jail running for president. So yeah, you can run from jail if you want. It would cause a constitutional crisis and be a mess. Wouldn't be good. Be really, really bad, actually, if somebody won from jail. But you're allowed to. You shouldn't be, but you are.
the same Jack Smith who convicted the governor of Virginia, Bob McConnell, the Supreme Court of the United States, in a 9-0 opinion, struck that down.
Yeah, I have no idea what he's talking about. Don't believe a word out of these people's mouths. They have a tendency to lie for a living. So be skeptical. Look everything up yourself. Even trivial facts. Look it up yourself every single time with these people. Don't believe anything they say.
So here's the problem that we have on our side, or what Trump has, really. He's got an Obama-appointed judge who is an Obama donor who's been outrageous with the sentencing on January 6th. You have not a jury of your peers. There's only 5% of the people in Washington, D.C. are registered Republicans. 5%.
Okay, hang on, I gotta count. I gotta hit this button at the same moment. Got it. There is no way to get a jury of Trump's peers exactly, but what that means is just people that live around where he lived or around where he was or whatever. And guess what? To ensure that there's no bias or whatever, there's a process called voir dire, I believe, where, you know, both sides, defendant and prosecutor, can strike any jury member that they want for any reason at all. They don't even have to have a reason, really. You don't like the way one looked at you, strike them. They're not part of their jury pool. That's kind of how it works. That's how you eliminate bias, basically, from my understanding. And I think it's an okay system. Strike anybody that you think might have bias. Anybody. And that's what Donald Trump is going to have to face down. He has 5% Trump fans. Guess what? There aren't going to be any Trump fans in that jury if the prosecutor has anything to say about it. That's the goal. And there aren't going to be any Obama fans either if they do voir dire properly. That's the whole point here. That's what we're shooting for. We don't want any bias. We don't want any fans of anybody else involved in anything. But that's a concept they don't understand. They want Trump fans on the jury at any cost. It's insane.
And so they're going to be having the Republican nominee, the former Republican president. So it's not going to be there, but it's not going to stop him being able to run. He can run even if he's in jail. He can. Now, obviously,
that's correct.
Practically, that's not going to be good, right? Because the low information voters in the middle that don't pay attention to this until after Labor Day next year, they're not going to do it. But the problem is he's not going to get a fair judge. He's not going to get a fair trial. So he's going to have a harassment. And what they're doing in these other trials is they're setting it after the Republican primary in May or June and before the November election.
Okay, it doesn't, like, there's no time that they could possibly set this that would be satisfactory. Trump intentionally and specifically announced he was running long before any other candidates announced. You know why? Because if he announced it as early as humanly possible, whenever it was he was going to be charged, which they knew was going to happen eventually, sooner rather than later, he was going to be able to claim that they're persecuting a political candidate or whatever. However long that took, whatever was going to happen. That's why he announced so early. And, you know, so his plan is coming to fruition right now, basically.
Why?
So really,
because it's a strategy.
A strategy to besmirch.
Somebody says, I see you're playing as some awesome eco-terrorist. Yes, absolutely. That if you don't know this game, you are eco-terrorists. That's how you start out. Kind of funny. Oh, shoot. This is another part. You know what? I guess I just I screwed up the whole Barrett date scene storyline, so I guess that's out the window. I'll probably end up dating Eris or something.
Before the November election. Why?
really-
Because it's a strategy.
A strategy to besmirch him right before.
There you go.
It is not a strategy, okay? They had to charge him at some point, and investigations take a long time. That's just part of the deal.
The election.
There you go. And to make sure he is the nominee and that he's as damaged as he can possibly be. I agree with what Lance said earlier, and people don't want to admit this, but many times, many of us vote against someone more than we vote for someone because, you know, one of the top things people have is they're holding their nose, picking the lesser of two evils. I remember.
That's true. Absolutely. Their political analysis is based on faulty logic and nonsense and garbage all the way down. It's just so confusing. I'm sorry. I just can't believe that some of these people, some of them, buy what they say. They have to be full of it, right? They must be. They can't possibly believe what they're saying here. They know better. They must.
The top things people have is they're holding their nose, picking the lesser of two evils. I remember a poll. I was talking to 500 pastors in Orlando in 2016, and a poll had just come out that Hillary and Trump had broken a record for being the most unliked Democrat and the most unliked Republican right before the nomination.
That's true. To my knowledge, actually, Hillary and Trump were the least liked candidates ever, practically, since polling started or something.
They were the nominees, but they were unliked. Well, it's going to be shattered this time with Trump and Biden.
No, Biden is not that unliked. Much to their chagrin, Biden is actually pretty well liked by a lot of people. Now, he's old and seems like he's kind of got one foot in the grave, one on a banana peel. That's not great, you know, but he's liked. He's not hated. He's only hated by this weird little group of nutterbutters that just sit in corners and seethe quietly about how much they hate the left and all that other garbage, you know. That's about as far as it goes.
It's just going to because of everything that's playing out.
All right, so let's look at what Steve Scalise had to say. Put it on the screen there, gentlemen. All right.
Wait, who is Steve Scalise and why do I care? Again, I know Steve Scalise is some nutcase, some right-wing nutcase. I don't know how he's, like, connected to all of this or what he believes or any of that. But I know that he's somehow a complete nutterbutter.
Let's be clear about what's happening. Biden's DOJ is cutting sweetheart deals for Hunter to cover the Biden family's influence peddling schemes while at the same time trying to persecute his leading political opponent.
Like, they're presenting this as an argument from some authority figure who has secret information on this. It's insane. I don't remember the order of the barrels. I think I hit this one, or do I hit this one first? Yeah, let me find the order of the barrels. 1 second. Usually I screw it up on purpose so that I can date Barrett, but that train's gone. Images, I just need to know A. It goes clockwise. Which one is the first one? It's in the guidebook, which I have sitting over there. I just don't feel like pulling the guidebook down. Okay, I think I've got it. I was just looking up who Steve Scalise is. He's an American politician who serves as the House Majority Leader and representative for Louisiana's 1st Congressional District. Okay, so he's just some far-right Republican nutterbutter, basically, and he's a representative. That's what it seems like to me, okay?
Opponent, outrageous abuse of power. Do you have Hunter's laptop?
I don't have it.
Okay.
I know people who have looked at it personally.
By the way, there is
So
a
it's
job
pretty
opening.
Okay, here's the thing about Hunter's laptop. I'm really not convinced that it even exists. I'm not convinced it's real. And if it is real, in my opinion, all right, let's just kind of go over the story real quick. So Hunter Biden allegedly, this is the story that Trumpists tell. Hunter Biden brings his laptop into a blind repairman. A blind repairman. Convenient that he's blind because he couldn't actually identify if it was Hunter Biden or not because he's blind. But it has Hunter Biden's information on it, so it must have been Hunter Biden's, right? My guess, this is just a hypothesis I'm throwing out there. You can believe it or not. This is just my opinion on it, okay? I'm betting anything that Russia hacked a bunch of Hunter Biden's accounts, which, you know, they hacked all kinds of people's accounts. They hacked John Podesta's account and got Hillary Clinton's emails and everything else that way through spear phishing attacks. They've been known to do this. They are known to do this kind of thing. This is like a known, understood thing that they do. My guess is they hacked into Hunter Biden's account and they got a whole bunch of incriminating pictures of him sleeping with people. By the way, in this part of Final Fantasy VII, Eris is supposed to say, "This guy are sick." In the original, she said, "This guy are sick," but I guess they corrected that in the whatever. Anyways, so my guess is they hacked his accounts. They loaded up all of this information, stuff that wasn't even really that incriminating. It was just pictures of him being with people, you know. It was just unflattering pictures, really, is all it was. And they loaded it onto the laptop as though it was Hunter Biden's, and they handed it to Rudy Giuliani. It may not have been Russia that handed it to him. I guess they handed it to the blind repairman. And then the blind repairman, of course, has no way of confirming that it was Hunter Biden that brought it in, because he's blind. And then he gave it to Rudy Giuliani, and it disseminated from there. So I'm guessing, and my assumption here is that the laptop didn't have anything terribly bad on it, except for Hunter Biden's pics of ducks, you know, waterfowl, pictures of various types of, you know, geese, ducks, you know, water birds, that type of deal. Had a lot of pictures of that on it, but that's it. It had like nothing else on it. It had some recording, some voicemails for some reason. Why would voicemails be on a laptop? From Joe Biden saying he loves his son and stuff, and that's it. There's nothing incriminating on there. And you know how I know? Because if there was something incriminating on there, it would have come out a long time ago. You think they'd sit on incriminating information for like 3 years? Oh no. They would have released it long and long ago. It's just nonsense. The whole thing is nonsense, in my opinion. The whole thing was orchestrated by political operatives who were trying to destroy Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, and it's not even that convincing. That's my take. Again, that's my opinion. Take it for what it is, an opinion. Anyway, let's keep listening here.
For chef at Obama's house, if anybody.
Sorry, let's step back.
By the way, there is a job opening for chef at Obama's house, if anybody's interested in that.
Okay, the crowd laughed. I don't know why they were laughing or what that meant, if there's some inside joke I missed, but okay.
I suggest life insurance first for your family. What do you think, Lance? Let me come to you. But the abuse of power, do you think is that too bold or is that accurate?
Wait, so they think that Joe Biden has abused his power, but Donald Trump has not? Is that what they're telling us right now? Really? They just live in another dimension, man. I'm telling you. These people are unglued from reality. They have no connection to reality anymore. And again, I'm not even convinced that these people believe the things that are coming out of their mouths. I suspect that these people are just saying it because they want to destroy their political enemy, and that's it. I think they believe some of it in degrees. I think they believe most of what they say, but some of this stuff they know is nonsense, and they say it anyways. Anyway, I don't know. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. I just think these people are ridiculous. As ridiculous as it gets. Stick around for the next one if you want to see more.